In college basketball, it's so much different. You know what I mean? And that's why Coach Cal, I think, doesn't have the success, right? And Tom Izzo does, or Krzyzewski does. Even if you look at some of the teams that Duke won with, they weren't even the most talented teams. It's just you need the X's and O's guys. You need the Jay Wright, not the Jay Billis. Jay Billis, I love him on the call,
There
and
you
I love
go.
the walks down the hardwood. Yeah, Jay Wright's actually my favorite coach in college basketball history. That's what happens when you got multiple screens going and you're watching Kentucky. Kentucky, man, really quick back to them because that's the team that I kind of want to play some futures with. They're making me want to tear my eyeballs out. That's the team, though, where they just can't maintain a lead because they play absolutely no defense. But like tonight, I like this matchup because if they go against a weak perimeter defending team, they're so damn good. I mean, when your best player is averaging 50% from three, it's just tough to stop that. But you got to get stops. And every year we do this with Kentucky, though, right? Cal, this month we're going to put in our defense. We're going to work on our defense. And in the tournament, it's always the same story.
Yeah, I mean, futures, I like them a lot more, right? I think that's sort of now is a good buy low. Cal had a whole thing where he's practicing 90% of his practice time on defense. So, I envision like a Gene Hackman Hoosier situation, right? Where he's just, we're not going to touch a ball until we learn how to master defensive principles. Not sure how much that actually matters. Tonight, I was looking at this game. It's like, I think you either lay it with Kentucky or you take Ole Miss on the money line. I'd be shocked if it falls somewhere in between, if that makes any sense. It sort of feels like the Rice at Memphis spot a few weeks ago, where I think people were trying to look at this as a Memphis get right spot, and they just lost again. Like the train continued to fall off the tracks. I can see Kentucky taking one more before they really tighten up the screws. And again, this is a young team, right? Like, going back to the Memphis comparison, that's actually an older team, one that can, I think, rally circle the wagons quicker. This is still a lot of youth. I mean, they have Antonio Reeves, they have a couple of older classmen, Trey Mitchell, but it's still largely a freshman team. And in the era of college basketball, where you have all these 30 and 31-year-olds playing their super duper COVID year, not exactly a recipe for a major turnaround quickly.
Yeah, I know. I say the same thing every year. I mean, it's just like the SEC is so loaded that it's really hard to make the case for some of these teams when we get into the tournament. Although there are a lot of these teams are battle tested. But, like Kentucky, I considered a couple weeks ago playing some Kentucky futures because of what I said, man. Like, they could shoot the rock. Shepard's shooting 52% from himself. They could get to the rim. They hit their free throws, but they just don't defend anybody. And if I'm placing a future in college hoops, which I don't do much of these days, man, because who the hell knows? I mean, a couple years ago, we saw St. Peter's make a run. The Fighting Sister Jeans made a run. You just never really know. If anything, I usually look at numbers on these mid-major schools where they have 6 or 7 4- or 5-year players. Like Florida Atlantic, for example. You know what I mean? Because these teams that just beat up on each other in the SEC, they have so much talent, but I just have no idea. Whereas, you got UConn, you got some of these other teams, Houston, where you have more experienced players, and at least they defend. But in the SEC, I feel like a lot of these teams are just like that Spider-Man meme, where they're all just the same team this season.
So Boston's a favorite right now, no surprise, at BetMGM. They're loaded at plus 260, followed by Denver, the Clippers, and then the Bucks. How big do you think the gap is between Boston and Milwaukee? If they meet in the postseason, would you be confident betting on the Bucks?
No, I wouldn't be confident betting on the Bucks because they have the ultimate choke in Doc Rivers as their head coach. Would you be comfortable betting on the Milwaukee Bucks in the playoffs?
Hell no.
Right.
No.
Okay then.
Absolutely.
So I mean, again, so what you're hoping for is that they can overcome having Doc as their coach. You're hoping that Giannis and Dame can help overcome that. The problem is, if you look at Lillard's numbers, they're among the worst of his career. Shooting from the field, shooting from three. I mean, they're not good at all. And if this team is going to go try and win a championship, his numbers have to resemble a lot closer to what his yearly averages are and not what he's doing right now in both categories. And if that does not get better and he continues to play like this into the playoffs, they're not going to win a championship. He must shoot the ball better than he's shooting right now.
Oh, gosh, no. No, they're not a contender. I wish that they were a contender because then I'd be a rich man. I'd get home my NFL MVP and my NBA MVP. But I think the issue for them is they just don't have another dude. I mean, this season, Kyrie has not played in 60% of the games. Luka leads them in pretty much every statistical category. Their second leading scorer, other than Kyrie, is Tim Hardaway Jr. So I have no faith in the Mavs. I love Luka. I think he's great, but right now, man, he's like Jordan before Pippen got there. Unfortunately, that's what the Mavs are. They're like those Bulls teams. But what Wemby's doing, man, is ridiculous. Like I said, he's a unicorn. He's a created player. And his skill set, a triple-double with blocks. He's a rim protector, but he also has handles. And here's the crazy thing. Like when we talked about Giannis 3-4 years ago, his game is only going to get better. You know, he's going to develop an even better jumper or a better post move. Imagine if you could give him like some of the, give him the Hakeem shake. You know, make him Olajuwon around the rim. This guy is only going to get better. And this team is no good, meaning they're only going to get better, which is the good thing. Now, problem is this isn't going to be the deepest draft. I don't know who they're going to be able to pick up like for instant success as far as next year, but they're going to be around, and he's fun, man. I do by default because like who else do you really trust right now? I mean, you could say Detroit. Because of what they proved this season, and you would figure that they're only going to get better, and they were able to bring back Ben Johnson to call plays, which I think is huge for Jared Goff. I don't trust Jared Goff without a solid play caller like Ben Johnson or Sean McVay. They could run the ball, obviously. They have to fix up that pass defense. Are they going to be able to do that? And San Francisco has one more year, I would say, with this current core, with this current roster. So I do still think that they're the team to beat. But who knows, man? Philadelphia might be able to bounce back now that they got smart football people, in the organization, in that room again, if you believe in who they brought in. Because, I mean, that was the issue last year, is you lose Shane Steichen, and you saw what he did year one in Indianapolis, and you lose Jonathan Gannon. I don't know if he's going to be a good head coach, but he was a solid defensive coordinator. I think they got to fix up that pass defense. They might be around, but, yeah, it's San Francisco for me still. And Green Bay. You know, I'm not being a homer. I think Green Bay is going to be solid, man. I think now that Joe Barry's gone, the defense is only going to improve. And then my other team would be the Rams. But they got to fix up that defense. But that offense was number 2 in the entire league next to only the Niners the second half of the season. But, you know, we talked last night after the show, I was thinking about it. I would be shocked if they did spend money at the wide receiver position, especially how loaded and how deep this draft is. You know, they could get some value later on in these rounds, I think, like a real stud to pair with Rashee Rice. Kelsey, we know, is coming back. They're able to run the ball. Like, I think, if anything, maybe Pacheco's workload only goes up. Maybe he's used more in the receiving game. And then you're able to pay these guys on the defensive side of the ball. Because look at what they've done the last 2 years. They traded Tyreek Hill, a top 5 wide receiver in this league, one of the more electric wide receivers, I would say, in NFL history as far as a downfield threat. And they've won 2 straight Super Bowls. Compare that to what happened with some of these other teams.